Hi guys, welcome to my channel and welcome if you're new. I'm Nika and I make book related videos, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of June. I hope you enjoy and watch this video until the end, and don't forget to click on the thumbs up icon and subscribe if you haven't already. So without further ado, let's dive right in and let me now blabber and yap about the books that I read recently. Alright, so first let us talk about statistics for June. Now I had a bath, so my hair is still a bit wet, that is why it looks so wild. I kindly ask you to ignore that. So yeah, I read a total of 16 books in June, out of which 8 were physical books and 8 were ebooks. I did not read any audiobook this month, that is in June, and actually I don't know why I didn't read any, but that's just the situation. So out of all those 16 books, 6 were romances, 2 were poetry books, 2 were mysteries, 2 were books from the Northeast, 1 was literary fiction, 3 were from speculative fiction category, 1 was a graphic novel or a comic book, you might say, 1 was a dark academia, and 1 was a short story collection. So those were all the books, and out of the 7 books that I had in my TBR, I ended up reading 5 books, which I think was great. So without further ado, I'm going to dive right in. This is how my journal looks, by the way. So yeah, let's now talk about the books that I read recently. So as always, I will just mention the romances that I read because unfortunately they weren't all that great, so I do not have a lot to say about them. By order in which I picked them up, we have Snowed In with the Scrooge by Alexa Riley, which I rated a 2-star. Morning Rose by Amy Lauren, which I rated 3-star. Now this is a Mills and Boon book and one that my aunt read when she was very young, and she wanted to reread it after a long time, so we both read it this time, and like I said, I gave it 3 stars. So then I wanted to read more Mills and Boon books, and so I picked up A Haunting Compulsion by Anne Mather, which I rated 2 stars, and I also picked up another book by Anne Mather, which was A Distant Sound of Thunder, which I rated 3 stars. Then I also read Twisted Emotions by Cora Riley, which I rated 3 stars. And lastly, I read Bride Unwanted by Darcy Rose, which was an utter shit show, and I rated it 1 star. Then let's talk about the comic book that I read, and it is this book, India Dreams Part 1 Mystery Trails by Maurice and J.F. Charles. Now as far as I know, it's a set of 10 books. They were originally written in French. But so far only 4 books have been translated. This is book 1. I got it from Om International Books and I really enjoyed it. It is, since this is a whole series and it is just book 1, it is the authors just laying out the story for you. So the time is 1944, the war is going on, and we follow Emily, who has just received a parcel that has her mother's journal, which tells a very specific story, and it basically takes her back to those early days in 1927 when her mother takes her to India, which was then colonial India under the British, and then she made friends with this Maharaja's son, a prince, who is now in the picture as well. So it's really interesting. I love the art style. It's stunning. I think I didn't show that very well, but yeah, it's beautiful. And I'm really excited to continue with the rest of the books in the series, so I'll probably be getting book 2 very soon. So this was a fun comic book and I rated it 3 stars. Then let's talk about the 2 poetry books that I read this month, and they are these 2. First we have The Dockyard and a Broken Ship by Parasmani Goswami. Many thanks to the author for giving me this book, and I have to say that I really enjoyed it. Now this is a collection of poems written on a myriad different topics, and I really enjoyed it. Now here's a brief line that I think actually really describes what this book is about. The poems manifest various feelings of love, attraction, love for loneliness, attraction to life, trust in people, passion for nature, etc. Regarding the sound and the word choice, his poetic journey begins with a pronunciation that can be observed in the poetry of young poets in the present times. His poems certainly depict time, but at the same time attempt to discover or analyze himself through words from human life. Now I remember annotating the heck out of it. Yeah, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but I have underlined so much. I have written my personal thoughts everywhere, so it's really interesting. So these poems really resonate a theme of hope and dream for the future, and they have a very hopeful note, that said, which I think is very good and very relevant in today's scenario. So these poems, especially this one for instance, I wrote that it questions that this poem has questions that reflect the universal desire for closure. So these poems are across various different topics, which I think we will all relate today, especially our generation. They talk about separation, about closure, about desires for more, about having your own self-conviction to do better in life, to move on, and so on. There are also these illustrations on the left-hand side of every poem, which I think went really well. And what I loved about this poem is all of them seem to evoke in you a different emotion, and also made you remember it. At least that was the case with me personally, because I generally tend to read poetry on an everyday basis. So this book, I think I read it over a week or two, maybe something like that. So I read poems every day. So I found that throughout the day something happens which would remind me of the words I had written that morning, or when I was reading a couple of poems before sleeping at night as well, I would be reminded of something that happened during the day which really fit those lines well. So this was really interesting. I would definitely recommend this book to others. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Then moving on, I have the other poetry collection that I read this month, and it is the Mosaic, a collection of poems by Swati Chopra. This was a review copy that was sent to me by Rupa, and I'm really thankful. Firstly, the cover. I think whoever designed this cover should get a raise immediately. Cover design by Amrita Chakravorty and cover illustration by Catherine Kurubilla. Really wonderful people, I think. They're so talented. I love the style, absolutely. Now I have to say that this poetry collection really reminded me of a person's personal faith. So I think most of these poems are revolved around that idea about a person and their faith in their God, whatever it is, and faith that things will turn out for the better. And I am someone who actually does gratitude journaling, so for me this book, I would read this before I did a bit of journaling at night. So I think putting these two activities together, reading these poems and then doing my own gratitude journaling, really helped me. And I think this book is on par with any of those books, self-help non-fiction books on gratitude journal, because it teaches you so much to be aware of, be grateful for, and all of that. And it's not something that a lot of poetry books cover, or maybe that's not something, or that's not a category of poems that I have read much personally. But that said, this is my first time reading poems according to this specific area, and I have to say I thought that these were really enlightening. I wouldn't say enjoyable, because they weren't really I mean, whenever the whole issue comes about a person's faith and all, I wouldn't say that reading something along those lines becomes necessarily enjoyable as much as they become enlightening. I hope I'm making sense, and I hope you're understanding me. But yeah, this was a beautiful book, and like the poem on the meandering river, I think my review of this is as meandering, because when it comes to such books that raise such philosophical questions in you, you cannot help but be a bit of a meandering person when it comes to talking about the book, I think. Yeah, so that was a lot of yapping on my side for this book, but it was really great. And for both of these poetry collections, I would say just read them slowly, savor them, don't rush through them, because that's not how you read poetry, unless it's your syllabus and you haven't completed it until the day before the exam. Since that is not the case with either of these books, I really beg you to take your time and slowly enjoy these books and just, you know, savor them. That said, I really enjoyed this book and I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Now, I don't have the physical books of these two books, but I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is book 1 in the series, and I also read Good Girl, Bad Blood, which is book 2 in the series, and the author is Holly Jackson. And I have to say that I absolutely understand the hype around these books now. So basically, we have this girl called Pippa, who is trying to solve the murders, the disappearances surrounding her small town. And in this whole adventure, she uncovers a lot more than she anticipated. It really shakes the foundation of the people's lives of that town. This was very, very interesting. The way in which she goes about the investigation is also really enjoyable. I really loved her relationships with the people, her pet, her family, her classmates, her schoolmates, all of that. And Ravi is also amazing. I love his jokes. They're very dad jokes sometimes, very funny, but then yeah, I think they make a great team in solving the crime and everything. Really, really good. Overall, I have to say that I rated both book 1 and book 2 4 out of 5 stars. I haven't read book 3 yet, but I'll maybe get to it in July or August. The reason I picked it up was because me and a couple of other friends on Bookstagram, we decided that we want to read the series, or at least the first book, before the series comes out. I finished the first book and the second, as you already know, but I still haven't started watching the series. I will very, very soon, but haven't done that yet. So yeah, this series was really fun, really enjoyable, nice teenage crime solving, mystery solving themes with, teenagers. If you enjoyed this, you can read the Inheritance Games, you can read the Truly Devious series, and vice versa. Really enjoyed it. And I am hoping to read book 3 very, very soon, and then I think I might reread the Truly Devious series once again. So yeah, those were the 2 mystery books that I read in the month of June. Then I also read a short story collection in the month of June, and that is Once Upon a Blink by Pujit Kayon. And this, rather than a short story, I would say that this is like a collection of flash fiction. So there are stories, very short 2-page, 3-page stories, and they were really enjoyable. Again, if you are someone like me who has suffered from concentration span, especially while I was reading this book, I was going through that as well as a reading slump. So in those days, I think this book was the really greatest choice, or the greatest pick I could have, hooked myself onto, because these are short, so it doesn't require a lot of concentration span. And for people in today's world and scenario, where we're already too busy and our concentration span has reduced thanks to all the reels we watch, this was a really, really enjoyable book. So each of the stories in this collection have different themes, and I loved that every story more or less came or ended with a moral. However, that said, even with the morals and all, it didn't get very boring, because one would expect that when there are morals, stories and everything, it becomes boring, it becomes like the subject we studied at school, moral science. But I think this book really packs a punch and makes a fine balance between morals and entertainment. So I think that's a great thing. And since it is short, you can have it on you when you're traveling. Maybe keep it on your bedside table so that you can read it every night a bit before sleeping. That's what I did with things that are very short, like the poetry books, and like this book, like it's an ultra short story collection. I keep them on my bedside table so that sometimes when I wake up too early, I can just pick up the book and maybe read a poem or two, or read a short story or two. Similarly, at night also, I can read a bit before I actually start feeling sleepy, so that I can stay away from the phone screen for some time, all of that. But yeah, I think the fact that this is such a short book is really a helpful one, and we have to take that as an advantage, because it's going to work wonders for your reading skill, for helping with your phone addiction and all of that. Really enjoyed it. The author's writing is also very structured, very to the point, which I really enjoyed. And the fact that the author includes so many different things, like stuff from everyday life, and then there is an addition of the magical, the weird, the fantastic. So it's a nice combination, and it never gets you bored. I feel like you're always on your toes because you never know what the next thing might happen, or the next story might lead you to, or the next character that will be introduced to. Everybody seems to have a different quirk, and then unless sometimes has actually magical powers, you never know what's going to come next. So I think it really keeps you hooked. Really enjoyed it, and I wish the author all the very best for his next venture, and I would absolutely love to read more of his works. So yeah, definitely give this book a try. Alright, so next we are going to talk about the literary fiction unhinged books that I read, and of those I have 4 right here. So I have firstly Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Now in this book we follow two women who are married to each other, and one of them is now waiting for their spouse to return from a deep sea expedition. And the only issue is that when Leah, her name, the one who goes down to the sea, when Leah returns from the ocean, from that expedition, she is very different, and that is the whole premise of it. Now this book really reminded me of Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation. So in that I really enjoyed it. It is about human love, basically, in the different forms of love and how it can survive despite the odds. Again, the setting becomes very weird, but that said, this was not as explosive as I thought this was going to be, and that's why I rated it 3 stars, not the 4 or 5 star. Actually, the 5 star that I was expecting I would give this book. Sadly, it was not that. Really enjoyed it, but I did feel like something was missing, the X factor in this book. So yeah, overall it was fine. Like I said, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on, I want to talk about the 2 5-star reads of this month. Firstly, we have Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko. Now this was originally written in Russian, and it has been translated by Julia Maytop-Hersey. Now in this book we follow this girl called Alexandra, or Sasha, and she meets this weird looking guy during her summer vacation, and he gives her some repetitive tasks to do, like swim, skinny dipping, yeah, and then go swim to a particular point and then come back. You have to do this every day for, let's say, 1 week, 2 weeks, or something like that. These sorts of repetitive tasks she is given over like about half a year, at the successful end of which she vomits out these gold coins. So what is the story is that after all of that is possible, the person tells her now go to this institute for education, basically. So this is very dark academia. It has magical elements, and the issue with this book, not issue, but the different thing with this book is that within dark academia also, this whole thing it kind of teeters between magic and philosophy, so you don't know where you stand really. So there's like because of that, there is a lot of philosophical discussions in this book, conversations or even paragraphs that just go round and round in circles. It's very weird at times, but I really loved it. It was a 5 out of 5 star for me. Her struggles, her coming to terms with this new environment, her understanding her classmates and then the seniors, her relationship with the roommates and everything. It's really interesting, and I really loved it. And she's a person who's good at her studies, so getting to see that side of this character was something that I really enjoyed. So I'm really hoping to get to book 2 soon. Like I mentioned, I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. Then the other 5-star book was Butter by Asako Yuzuki. This is also translated fiction, and it was originally written in Japanese but translated by Polly Barton. Now in this book we follow this journalist named Rika who tries to get in touch with this apparently this woman cook serial killer who makes these delicious dishes for her patrons, and then ultimately apparently she kills them. So everyone is curious about how this happens, especially because this woman, the serial killer, is not very pretty. She's not thin, which are the beauty standards in Japan, and so the people are really confused, like how can this fat woman have all of these lovers who shower her with everything. So all of that This book was a really interesting discussion, and it shed a light on the beauty standards of Japan today, misogyny, rampant sexism. It made my blood boil at some points. It is also about the journey of self-discovery for our heroine Rika, through food, through her likes, through understanding herself and the people around her forming this wonderful bond, found family kind of, all of that. I think it's very, very beautiful. And let me tell you that please have some kind of snack with you when you're reading this book, because I felt so hungry when I was reading it. And I read it around in 3 days. I think every night I would read like a few chapters, and I would feel so hungry at night because I was reading this, and reading these food descriptions, my mouth would water. So yeah, really wonderful book. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. Then the last book that I'm going to talk about today is Sandera is a Flesh by Augustina Basterica. Now this book takes place in a future kind of world in I was about to say Assam, but in Earth itself, wherein animals now are said to have some sort of virus, so you cannot eat meat. And so instead, to fulfill that requirement, the protein requirement, humans have turned to breeding other humans as cattle, so that you can have them for consumption. So basically cannibalism is legal in this world, and this book is a brilliant exploration of government censorship, the way in which a government can become totalitarian, and all of that. We have the main protagonist Marco, who is grappling with his own demons. He's just lost a child. He remembers and misses his pets a lot. His wife is now estranged. His relationship with his father and his sister are very, very weird. And now he also has this cattle woman to take care of, kind of. So it's a very, very weird book, and as you all know by now, I really love something along these lines, and I had a lot of high expectations from this book. I thought I would rate it 5 out of 5 stars or something like that. I have previously read Augustina Basterica short story collection 19 Claws and a Blackbird, which unfortunately was not as good as I expected. And I'm really sad to say that this book was the same. I don't know what it is, but it just felt a bit... something was missing in this book as well. So I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. I really expected a lot from this book, but like I said, I can't name it, but I felt something was missing. More gore, maybe more playing with the emotions or bringing that to the fore. It had to be more overt. I think in some ways it is rather subtle, but of course there are gory bits as well. We are talking about human cannibalization, and especially in this world where there are processing plants, you know, for preparing the meat. So all of that, but I still think when it came to the emotions and all, there was a lot of showing, or there was a lot of telling rather than showing. I think the showing bits were also done, especially with those human meats and all, but something was missing. The way his emotions could have been explored, there was a lack. Maybe it is not so in the Spanish version, maybe it's a translation issue. I don't know. I will never know, probably, unless and until I learn Spanish, which I don't think will be happening anytime soon. But yeah, so that was a disappointment. But yeah, those were all the 16 books I read in the month of June. I think this is a very frazzled video, but that's because I am very frazzled today. As you can see, my hair really reflects my situation today. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to know what you thought, and maybe engage in some intellectual debate if we have differing attitudes, which is bound to happen. So anyway, I hope you give these books a try. As always, I always will reiterate that don't blindly follow any book reviews that you see on the internet or any book reviews you see on YouTube, because you might always end up enjoying a really hated book. You never know, whether you read it critically or mindlessly just for fun. So I'm just going to say, read these books and give them a try, and then maybe decide for yourself. Always having a bit of recommendation as guidelines is really fun and well, but you shouldn't follow them blindly. That's what I believe, and that's what I always say to others, propagate. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, take care. Peace out. Bye.